Hello, everyone. We're here today again. It's going to be a possibly contentious, difficult episode, but not shy away from the topic. I know there's very strong feelings and opinions on this side. The opening slide is intercepting missiles, intercepting the rockets coming from Gaza over Israel. Marcus and Keith, how are you guys doing up there?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. And well, just to keep you updated, still got no appointment for my first shot, what the vaccine concerns. But well, I'm waiting for it. Keith?
Been a good week. Weather's great. Health is good. Got some stuff done, and been digging into the news with knowing I'd be on the show this week with a little different perspective, a little deeper. Trying to look at things a little more closely. But there's so much to look at. There's not You can't keep up with it. So that's what's going on here, and good to be here.
Yeah. Well, what we have today for you is, you sensed it when you saw the card. I left it uncommented because, in my opinion, you cannot put any intelligent comment on the situation we are seeing in the past week, what Israel and Palestine concerns. We will talk about this. And I can guarantee you right now that we cannot deliver any solutions, of course. We will talk a little bit later about the lethal black fungus, which seems to pose another serious threat to especially poor people in the so-called third world countries. We'll talk about the electric transportation. It's an update on Joe Biden's plan, and we have little shortcuts. And well, yeah, what a week it was. And yes, Amos contacted me on Thursday, and he said, we cannot avoid this topic on the show, and we don't want to avoid what's going on there. And uh, it is very difficult to describe because it has a long history. There is politics in it, religion in it. There is Europe in it, especially Germany is involved in all this. What the history concerns, and well, uh, in many ways, it is disturbing what we are seeing, not only in Israel and Palestine itself. I'm talking right now about what's going on in Germany, and today we had a lot of demonstrations here in Germany against Israel, and I had a very uneasy feeling when I saw these protests. I think the protests are in parts justified. For me, it ends when it is clearly pointing to anti-Semitism, which we saw on nearly every demonstration here in Germany. This makes me very angry because of the history we have here, and we had with the Jewish population in Germany. Uh, it reminds me of the many things I learned in school, and when I researched privately about this, a lot of it reminded me of the 30s and 40s here in Germany, when Jewish people were hunted. And well, as I said, the protests itself are okay, but they turned to be clearly into showing anti-Semitic feelings, and this is what I find very disturbing. Maybe Amos, you can change the slide, because I think we are still in the intro slide. Amos, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
No, there's the card.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is my impression for what I saw today, and in a minute we will talk about what the situation is like, and this is only to share with you my emotions from what is going on in Germany. It is I cannot avoid to address the topic that there are not so many German right-winger groups involved in it. To my knowledge, I did not hear about any of right-wingers here, but it is mostly people with Arabian or Turkish backgrounds, and it is disturbing to see this. And if you see, if you look at the bigger picture, you know how many of those people who are protesting against Israel, quite a number of them came from those places which were hit by wars in the past. We can talk about who caused those wars again, but those people had to leave their homes, and of course they did not leave their sentiments and their prejudices at home. They brought them with them, and this is also another problem which came clearly out in the past days here in Germany. And we have to address this. I think rightfully in our German constitution, it is written that Germany will do everything to fight for the existence of Israel. I think it is no surprise after what happened here, the atrocities, the Holocaust, the Shoah. But being friends with Israel doesn't leave us out of the responsibility also to tell the government that they are acting wrongly. And well, it's a very deep rooting discussion. And I'm looking forward to have it with you guys, Amos and Keith. Well, I'm still irritated because yeah, okay, I see we are coming to some questions. Yeah, what is it all about? When I did my research, I realized that I know so less about what was going on over there, because it is nothing which just happened last week or the years before.
But there was
not
an
even
immediate trigger, right?
Not even 1948. It rooted back to my research to the year 2,600 years ago, you know, when the first Jerusalem temple was destroyed by invaders and the Jews had to spread in other regions. And from there on, it is absolutely crazy right, you know, until today, because as I said at the beginning, there's so many things, so many nations, so many politics, religion, etc., is involved in it. It is absolutely crazy, you know. And I would like to go over to the next question: who are the Israelites, the Jews, and what is Zionism? You know, and maybe Amos can tell us a little bit more about it.
Want me to address it now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Well, Zionism is simply the love of Israel as a homeland for the Jews. That's as simple as that. It's not loaded with any racism or anything like that. It's simply the yearning of the Jewish people to return to the land where they came from.
Yeah. The interesting point, which make me realize that I know so less about it, is when I got into Zionism, and in the history, it is very interesting that there was a large portion of the Jewish communities which were spread at very many places all over the world. The idea of Zionism was opposed by many of them because maybe Amos can correct me if I'm wrong. The religion behind it, behind the Jewish belief, is that the day the Messiah appears, it would be the starting point for world peace, in which the Israeli people or the Jews would go back to Israel. And every attempt over hundreds of years to build an own state by the Zionistic people, I don't know if it is right, was opposed and very critically seen. And it comes, as I said, a lot of politics in it. There were France in it. There were England in it. They had treaties with the Arabian people, who at certain times were not opposing that there would a Jewish community settle down there. There were treaties made, and because of national interests, they never came they never became reality. And it was very interesting to see that it was opposed by so many Jewish people. And the other thing is, why they opposed it, they tried to assimilate to the nations they lived in. And they practiced their Jewish belief, but they in their agenda, I don't know if it's the right expression, but it was in them that they would become full members of the states, and they were fighting a lot of it to get equal rights. Those fights were also lasting a long time. And it
Right.
came. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, the Zionistic movement is a socialist movement. It was a secular socialist movement, not a religious movement at all.
I read it was a 3-part movement. It was a religious movement, it was a socialistic movement, and it was a right-wingers movement. I don't know which emerged from which one. Maybe the socialistic movement was first, but it also had to do with from where the Jewish people came. A lot of people came from the Russian territory. They were suppressed by the Tsars, and they moved over, and maybe they had the more socialistic approach to this. Others came from other regions with another approach to this. And and what, Amos, what are the Jews? Because you hear in the street people are demonstrating against the Jews, and who is dropping the bombs? Is it the Jews? Who is it? Is it the Israelis? Is it the government only? Who are the people involved in all this, Amos? Maybe you can tell us your point of view of.
Yeah, I think we should discuss that. I think we should step back a little bit and just look at certain things, like what we're talking about, the land that we're discussing. This is the pink areas are the Palestinian areas. The West Bank is the parts of Jerusalem. It crosses through Jerusalem. That's where the last flashpoints were with regards to violence, and that spread to the rest. And you can see Gaza is called actually it's supposed to be pronounced Gaza. The Gaza Strip is at the southern part of Israel, all the way touching Egypt. It's a strip the long coastline. It's a very densely populated, strip. So you can see how densely populated it is. Darker areas, the medium dark areas are highly populated urban areas, and the dark green are even like more dense camps and so forth that still exist. So it's like one big city basically, with metropolitan suburbs, if you want to look at. So that's where Hamas is ruling the Gaza Strip. They've managed to kick out the Fatah movement, which is a more socialist movement, and still holds power in the West Bank. But there has been recently there's supposed to be elections that were supposed to be held, and Abbas, the head of the Fatah movement, has postponed the elections, quoting the reason as the East Jerusalem being under siege during the in curfew during the violence that was going on there, and they said they could not hold elections during that time. But analysts say that this has mainly had to do with the fact that it looked like he was going to make big concessions and losses to Hamas, even in the West Bank, which and I'm not saying it from my point of view or from any Western point of view. That's their own media and analysis. So that is kind of he blamed Israel for that. It's kind of take it a turn of its own, made things even worse than they were before. And Hamas saw an opportunity to improve their position even further towards a future election by taking the baton and presenting themselves as the true guardian of the Palestinian cause. So a lot of this has to do with internal politics rather than anything else. And on the Israeli side, we have Netanyahu, who is being besieged politically. He's in a battle for his survival, and perhaps he dropped the ball being enmeshed in this battle, or if you're cynic, you would consider that perhaps he helped or was interested in further inflammation of the situation in order to cause a distraction. So it's hard to know, but what's clear is that it's mostly things going on the political level internally on both sides, perhaps, and because you could ask why now. And we have this sort of inflammation happen every few years, and it's like a cycle. Let me bring in something I thought Trevor Noah had I'll play the whole thing even if we get hit on that and replace it afterwards if we do. But I think it's important to.
Israel versus Palestine. And I know that even saying that sentence means I'm losing followers online and I'm on the verge of being blocked on all social media and in life. That's how contentious this topic is. I mean, before you even finish the sentence, people are like, "You idiot, how dare you, shut the hell up." But guys, we have to talk about it because this is one of the most difficult stories that has existed in our lifetime. I mean, there are lots of fights that seem like they'll never come to an end. You know, India versus Pakistan, China versus Tibet, white people versus rhythm. But Israel versus Palestine is a 73-year-old beef that has stumped everybody. I mean, when it stumped Jared, you knew that this thing was difficult. But the paradox is that because Israel and Palestine has been ongoing for so long, people forget that it is ongoing. That is until there are flare-ups that the world cannot ignore, which is what happened again this week.
Overnight, a deadly barrage from Israeli forces lighting up the skies over Gaza. And in the West Bank, warning sirens echoing through Bethlehem. Earlier, Palestinian militant groups firing more than 200 rockets into Israel. Most of the Hamas rockets stopped by Israel's missile defense system, or they fell short. Israeli strikes reportedly killing at least 23 people, including 9 children. Israel saying the dead were militants. At least 6 Israelis were reported injured. Tensions have been escalating over Israeli moves to evict Palestinian families from their homes in East Jerusalem. They boiled over as more than 100 worshippers and protesters were injured as Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque using tear gas and rubber bullets.
Yes, this week, the conflict escalated again, and now dozens of people are dead, including children. And look, man, what makes Israel-Palestine such a difficult topic to even broach is all the layers that are packed into it. No matter how much you try and break it down, people are always going to say that you're leaving out some crucial piece of context. And you know what the truth is? They're probably right. I mean, there's the history of how Israel became a state after Nazi Germany tried to destroy the Jewish people. But there's also the history of the British taking the land from the Palestinians. Not to mention that every other country in the region has its own issues and its own agendas. And then on top of all of that, there's religion involved. And I don't care what anybody says, man, religion is the one thing that has never calmed any situation when there's a clash. And you know what makes it even harder? Is the fact that who's right and who's wrong always seems to change depending on when you start measuring time. This week was the perfect example of it. If you start from Israel fired rockets into Gaza, well then Israel is the bad guy because they're bombing Gaza. But then you take a step back in time, you go, well, Hamas fired rockets at Israel. Well then Hamas is the bad guy. But then you take a step back and you go, but the Israeli police, they went in and started beating people up in a mosque during Ramadan, the most holy time in the Muslim calendar. Well, then Israel is the bad guy. But then you go, well, the Palestinians, well, they were throwing rocks. Well, the Israelis, they were kicking people out of their homes. Well, the Intifada, well, Israel keeps taking more and more land. Well, the Arab invasion, and back and back and back, and who knows how far. Like, you probably find the first cavemen who hit each other with clubs were probably Israeli and Palestinian. I don't know. And look, I don't want to have that argument. I want to have that argument and the noise that goes back and forth in this thing, because honestly, I don't think that any TV show in 10 minutes is going to come close to solving Israel-Palestine. And 10 minutes isn't even enough time to explain the Mortal Kombat conflict. So I'm not even trying to come in and do that, right? I'm not trying to do that. The part where we say who's good and who's bad and who started, let's step away from that and instead ask a different question. Instead, let's look at who's dead and who's alive this week. In Gaza, Israeli airstrikes have reportedly killed 28 people, including 10 children. Over 150 people have been wounded. In Israel, Hamas rockets have killed 2 people. And this exchange of fire comes after the Israeli assault in and around the Al-Aqsa Mosque that left more than 600 Palestinian protesters, worshippers, and civilians wounded, and a few dozen Israeli police. Now, personally, I'm not saying for you, just personally, I cannot watch that footage and hear those numbers and see a fair fight. Like, set aside motives and intentions and just look at technology alone. Israel has one of the most powerful militaries in the world. They can crush Gaza like that. Not to mention one of the most advanced defense systems in the world. You shoot a rocket at them, it's probably not going to do anything to them because of their defense system. right? They've got a giant Mutombo in the sky just knocking them down. And I know that this is contentious. And I know that people are going to hate me for this. But I just want to ask an honest question here. If you are in a fight where the other person cannot beat you, how hard should you retaliate when they try to hurt you? Honest question. And I ask this question because I think of it like this. When I was a teenager, I would always get into fights with my little brothers. And little kids can be vicious, right? They're trying to punch you in the leg, trying to punch you in the nuts. They're kids, they do that. But my mom would say to me, whenever I get angry, she'd go, Trevor, don't hit the kid back because they can't hurt you. You're a teenager and the kid is 4. And I was like, yeah, but the kid is hitting me. He could hurt me. But my mom was like, yeah, but you're also so much bigger than the kid. You can crush him in an instant. And please don't get me wrong right now, because I know someone's going to watch this and go like, oh, you're comparing Palestinians to children. No, I'm not doing that. I'm telling a story about myself. Honestly, I am. Because what my mom made me understand is that as a person who has immensely more power, I had to ask myself whether my response to this child was just or necessary. Could I find different ways to deal with this? Whether I felt aggrieved or not, or whether they were fighting fair, was almost irrelevant. Was I even able to ask myself the question about why they were doing what they're doing? Was I willing to admit guilt? This was all part of the question that I had to ask myself. But the main question I ask in this situation is about power. And please, again, I know this is not a great analogy, because I'm not saying Palestinians are children. I'm not just saying they're all children, right? I'm not saying that they're harmless or that they're irrational or acting out. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not. I'm just talking about the difference in power, which is something we do all the time. I mean, think about policing. If a man has a knife, should the cops shoot him? In many parts around the world, like in the UK, they say, well, we're going to do everything we can to try and not shoot the person, even at risk to ourselves, because at the end of the day, they brought a knife to a gunfight. So what's the right response? Well, I mean, everyone has a different answer to the question, and I'm not trying to answer the question, nor do I think I'm smart enough to solve it. All I'm asking is, when you have this much power, what is your responsibility?
All right, so I don't know, Oz, what's your gripe with his position? I think it's a very reasonable way of trying to make sense out of all of this, and I feel a lot like him in stepping into this discussion, because to a lot of you, I will see me as somebody who's an apologist for Israel or one-sided, although I try to do the best in presenting a balanced, factual point of view, and for a lot of Israelis who are very emotionally affected by this, I would seem as somebody who's far gone or way off the rest. So the point is that he's right about the fact that it's an ongoing thing, and that's that's the tragedy of all of this. That it's not just the flare, because you could point to the fact that the current round of hostility started when Hamas and the Jihad Islam sent rockets, thousands of rockets, to hit Israeli civilians in towns. But of course, there's a larger context here, and the point is that we've not solved this context. And even when we're talking about apartheid, what we're referring to is apartheid over the Palestinians in the occupied territories, not the Arabs in Israel as much. It's a very difficult situation to broach. Yeah.
I think mainly what we are seeing is a fight about pictures. Who can deliver the best pictures? which enrages the people most is on the winning side. And you pointed it out. It's a political fight, as well as in the Palestinian parts, as in the as was what Israel concerns. It also it is in my opinion it is clear distraction from Netanyahu. He's facing accusations of corruption, etc. And maybe at the
Now he's a wartime president.
at the very weak presentation of the government today, it might bring him back into office when he presents himself as an ultra hardliner and showing no mercy. And this is exactly, I think, the people he wants to appeal to. Okay, Keith, we talked a lot now. Now it's your turn, Keith. Tell us.
Yeah, right. It is, and I've been wanting to talk about this. Yeah, people make it a little bit too complicated in my mind. And it's my position. I'm anti-war. I'm pro-justice.
Yes.
Watching an apartment building come down, virtually falling like it was Building 7 in the Gaza
Yes,
Strip.
we are showing. We are.
Was
we're having the
somebody
clip.
cleaning a toilet in that apartment building? Was somebody trying to hang a picture on a wall in that apartment building? Are we supposed to believe it was empty? That thing was huge.
They were
That
issuing.
thing was 30 stories tall.
Right. I just want to
apartment building.
Just want to insert a thing here that they do warn the owners of the buildings before they attack a building. So unfortunately, that's not always enough, and sometimes people get trapped, and sometimes
And it doesn't.
it
And
goes
and
off.
and in the end, it doesn't. Of course, it doesn't matter if there are people in the building. My information is also that the building was clear when it magically collapsed. But you cannot deny that it was a clear attack on the media. It should prevent the other side to bring photos, to bring pictures, to bring evidence to this. And this is considered by many as a war crime. Of course, it is politically. It might appeal to Netanyahu voters. I don't know, and to many. And he, as I said, he's doing this for decades. Or the Israeli government is for decades looking to get the support of the right wingers in the party landscape. And now, Keith, we interrupted you. Sorry.
Well, as more time goes by, he more than anyone who has been, politically active in Israel has pissed me off, frankly. As more time goes by, he's conservative, and I don't see that he's pro-justice. I grew up, with the idea that, Zionism was a good thing. And, but as the years go by, I saw this rabid element that doesn't seem to be interested in justice. And so, at the end of the day, people are dying, and it goes on and on and on. And, I've lived it with my entire life, I'm not there, I don't suffer, but it's been, I was a young child, and I think in the 7-Day Wars or something. And, so the question now is, are there people who really want peace, or are they people who just accept that, they're in it as to win, and they're really not interested in a long-term solution? And it is complicated. One thing I know some years ago that made it very difficult was when Russia opened their doors and let anybody who wanted to immigrate to Israel go. And the country was, I think they had 4 million immigrants in a very short period of time in a very small space, and did that sideline any plans to help the Palestinians that were living there achieve equity? That's my thing. I'm into equity. And some years ago, I looked into what was going on there, and apartheid is an appropriate description of the term. The economic situation is a night and day difference between Palestinians and Israelis, from what I can see. Huge, and is anybody trying to fix that? Is anybody trying to, the world's ignored the Palestinians for all this time. Arab countries could have let them in. They speak the same language, jobs programs. Um, the number of people trying to solve this is disappointing, and there's a lot of, like Trevor even saying it's a difficult situation, goes on and on. And I'm not saying I have the answer. Hey, who's killing whom? Whoever fires the gun is doing it, right? I mean, explain it away all you want. Somebody's dying, and are you working to stop that, to bring it to an end, or are you trying to just get your own point of view out? Make yourself hear yourself. And so that's what I say about
the
it.
thing is, in my opinion, there are too many. There have been, and there had been, and there have been too many spoons in this pot, and this makes it very, very complicated. But you are right, and this is also my impression. If you look there, I only see victims, people who lose, and I see only a few winners, which is mainly on the political level. For all others, it is, the situation is not helpful. And I would like to ask Amos, how is all this considered in Israel? We are talking about Israel. In my opinion, it is what we are seeing there, and also brought it to the point in chat when he said it is about the government, and this is Israeli government of committing crimes of apartheid and persecution against Palestinians, period. And this is what in my perception, I grew up with this conflict. I was born in 1967, it was a year when the 6-Day War happened, and since today, and Amos said it comes in periods, it comes in waves, and over the years you got more and more you accepted these waves like the daily sunrise. It just happened, because nobody completely understands where to put the foot in the door, in the revolving door, and to make all this stop, because there's so many interests in all this. But what are the Amos, what are the people in Israel thinking about this? Are they all on the side of Netanyahu and the right wingers? What is the situation?
Okay, so basically, that's a good question. The issue is that in the West, you usually see a simplistic kind of narration depending on which side you're leaning on. So you kind of see it either Israelis are the devils, or you see it the other way around, and there's very little daylight. There's very little different. There's not enough nuance in there. I can tell you that in Israel, and this is to answer Melissa and Oz, right now Israel is under attack. Their main cities, just imagine New York and Washington D.C. were being attacked by rockets, and people were scurrying around trying to flee and getting hit, and it's creating a whole issue. So the question is, so basically people you can't expect that the country would be hit, their civilian population would be hit, and that they would allow that to continue to whatever degree. And here's what where the analysis that Trevor made is falling apart, because it's not a matter of you're stronger, so you should hold back. Tell a father, a grieving father that has lost their children, that they should expect more deaths so that the equation would be more equitable. I mean, that's not how it works. You just basically do whatever you can to stop it. And the Israeli approach has been to hit back as hard as they could to create a shock and to discourage further
Yeah, but
attacks.
this,
Of course, that's
but
not working. That has not worked. It works every few years. There's like a flashpoint. There's a lot of dead, and then it goes quiet for a few more years, and then it repeats again, exactly in the same formula, same number
yes,
of
and
people.
the harder the retaliations are, the better are the pictures the other
Of
side
course,
gets,
of
and
course it
the
feeds
bigger
into.
the anger gets on Israel, and as you said, it's an endless circle, and I think the question Trevor Noah poses was right in some way, because there, if you, okay, when we are starting this, you said Israel is now under attack. The normal reflex would be, okay, but Israel did this, and then Israel will answer, but you did that, and then you say, no, you did, and this is exactly the never-ending circle, and where can we get where? Yes, exactly. And they are only victims, except those who are in power, who profit from this,
Right.
And these concerns both sides, as you said, the conflicts with Abbas and the Hamas, and on the other side, Netanyahu and his problems. But where can we get the foot in the revolving door?
Okay, so that is exactly the point, and you've put your finger smack on the issue. The problem cannot be solved while we're spiraling down. Unfortunately, it's a downward spiral. If you unilaterally try to stop it, things are just going to get worse. What can be done is, once this blows over, and it has to eventually blow over. Once it blows over, then both Israel and Palestinians have to understand that it cannot continue. This kind of smoldering problem. It's not that if we leave Palestinians alone, if Israel leaves Palestinians alone and lets them do their own thing and just deny them statehood, or have them subjected to certain things that they see as dehumanizing or whatever. It's not like they're gonna stop their opposition. So unless we tackle those directly.
Have you guys heard of BDS?
And BDS was a sort of peaceful attempt to influence, apply pressure to the Israeli government, and it's been attacked. I think that was appropriate. I'm not saying that I am in favor of BDS for various reasons, but that was an appropriate way of resistance, not launching rockets against civilians. And so when we get out of this, I think what is important.
I don't know enough about it to strictly support it, but what it claims to be is the boycott, divestment, sanctions (BDS) movement works to end international support for Israel's oppression of Palestinians, pressure Israel to comply with international law. Now, like I just said, I don't know enough to say really support it, but I do have a thought here. If Israel is the one that has nuclear weapons, that has incredible wealth, that has incredible power, and if you consider that the Palestinians are in any way underdogs, then something like the BDS movement, where you're going to pressure and basically shame Israel into behaving themselves, might be a good idea. Shame them into behaving themselves. They have the power.
I see what you mean, and let me see let me tell you my point of view on this, because the BDS thing. I think in South Africa, during the apartheid regime in South Africa, the economic pressure on the regime worked, at least, and so this is one point of this coin. The other thing is, as a German, I'm very aware about the signs or the paintings on the Jewish shops in the 30s in Germany, which told don't buy Jewish and stuff, So from the thingy is, nobody would have come to the idea boycotting products from South Africa during their apartheid regime to be it anti-Semitic, but in this case, if you come up with such a suggestion, you are automatically connected, to be anti-Semitic.
And it could be, but it's not necessarily. And
yes,
and it is
yes,
an appropriate means of applying
in
pressure.
Germany, but in America, the general feeling in America is that Israel can do no wrong. So when you have that sort of situation, criticism is not a bad thing.
I'm not so sure that this is the understanding now, but it's not even the understanding of Israelis. There's a lot of split opinions in Israel. There's people on all sides of these issues, as there should be in a democracy. But
the thing is,
I'll support the anti-war point of view.
The thing is that the Israeli government can trust that it doesn't matter what they are doing, they get supported by their allies, be it America, be it Germany finally, because, and this is another thing which very disturbs me here in parts of the press here, there I think mostly of the serious media here try to be objective, but there are certain media here which are reporting very, very one-sided about what's going on, and they are absolutely pro-Israel in a way which makes you feel uncomfortable, because you can feel, the dishonest, the unobjectivity in this reporting. But I was moving away from the topic. Well,
I think you'd find the same on the other side. There's a lot of so to speak propaganda on the other side. Simplifying.
And this is. And this is also the thing. It is not a war about pictures. It is about information and misinformation. And what do we really know? We don't live there, we don't experience what's really going on. We only can trust the sources we think are credible in this.
I know is, I got something to say about here. One thing I know is that on our news, I know that one of the people that was killed in Tel Aviv was an Indian citizen. This woman was working, in Tel Aviv, and she was killed. And from what we've learned in the show here, there's only been a few people killed in Israel, but there have been nearly 100 people killed in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know any of their stories.
But that's of course it's gonna be,
because those stories, as an American, we don't get. We only get one side.
No, I don't think that's true. I hear a lot of focus on that, and it's clear that the force is disproportional, because first of all they're trying to get what they're trying to do. The military, what they're trying to do is go after tunnels. There's a city of tunnels that was built underneath the ground. They basically reappropriate, they reroute building materials. Instead of building shelters for their population, they build tunnels to use for attacks into Israel. And that's been, every time it's the same story.
And to get food into Gaza.
No, it's not to get food into Gaza.
Those are also, they've been smuggling.
They are smuggling, but
those
are not
for smuggling. They have,
right, but that's not what you're seeing here. That's these military grade constructions are just that. The tunnels, there are tunnels that are like just carved out of the stone, and every now and then they collapse on the poor people who are digging it for smuggling purposes. But this is not the case here. This is like an underground city designed for attack purposes. Instead of providing shelters that could have saved people from whenever there are bombings. You mentioned the AP building. Let me run that video from earlier today.
It's horrible.
It's very sad. People have lost their apartments.
Yeah.
It's
And
infrastructure that's
it
being-
was, and as I said, it was known for a long time that it was the building used by Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other news correspondents there. And
I suspect that there was some reason that it was targeted other than the fact that it housed these agencies, because that's not a good picture for Israel. It's very damaging. So
But do they care?
Yeah.
They have the power.
What I
Of
said, you know,
care.
they
I
don't
mean,
care.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
of course
yeah.
they care. The UN has always been categorically
The UN, you know, the UN, come on, you know, this is a toothless tiger, you know. If the USA has a veto in it, it doesn't count anything. So they can trust Israel, trust that USA will stand by its side, and this is the Trump thing they need, you know.
Here's another video of they caught launches of rockets. See that the launches are done from within neighborhoods, which is a problem.
Well, there's nowhere else.
Well,
Yeah, there's no free space anymore. You said it. You said it.
No, the fact is that it is. There are still fields and stuff. It's not like there is no place. It is very densely populated, and that's part of the problem. I was starting to say when they try to get those tunnels. When they try to get the tunnels out, of course, there's casualties because they're in populated areas. So it's just a complete mess. Very tragic. There's a whole generation of people that are going to grow up with trauma of these things on both sides. And it's just awful. It's horrible. So yeah, what can you say? I mean, that's it's just
Amazing video.
Yeah, and I think let's go through the photo section we have here, and I think let them speak for themselves. You know, you can see here a Jewish a guy and an Arabian woman is discussing, and well, this is how it should be. You know, discussing with words and a lot of fingers. You know, but without weapons. And yeah. And the next one is exactly the thingy which comes into my mind, and I think this is something many people associate with Palestinians. You know, throwing rockets at the mighty Goliath, if you want so, right? This is the David versus Goliath symbol, if you want so, right? You know, the archaic looking guy from centuries ago, you know, and the highly modernized army or police guys on the hill, you know. This is what happened during Ramadan at the Al-Aqsa mosque. I don't know, Amos. What do you think about the timing? Was it why did it happen? You know, I mean, the Israeli government should be aware that this should not be unanswered. You know, not on the Ramadan, not in the Al-Aqsa mosque. What cui bono? You know, who profited from this?
Yeah.
Why did it happen?
That was a critique launched.
Who profited? He's a wartime president.
Yeah, that's the critique
Yeah.
that was launched at the government, that they may have provided responded overly.
So if you want, so it was just for the political stunt.
I wouldn't adjust, but
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There was a event that where a Jewish religious guy was lynched by an Arab mob, that followed with an Israeli mob that came in and started like violence against Palestinians on the street. Then they started rioting both in the Sheikh Jarrah and the Al-Aqsa. And I wish I had a picture of it, but when you look at Al-Aqsa is a complex that's built on the footprint of the
former Jerusalem temple.
Yeah, it's on the footprint, and the Jews have the western wall of that complex. They come to pray at the outside, at the bottom of that wall. So you have a situation where the Al-Aqsa is overlooking that square, and they when they broke into Al-Aqsa, they found that they were amassing rocks and objects to cast at the Jewish prayers. So you see all of these things where violence breaks in, it justifies the violent identification of the other. So you from then on perceive the other as the enemy, and it's not something that goes up easy. I've heard of people who've been in Israel. The worst part of this whole thing is that as opposed to other times that there was an inflammation, this time this is spreading into Israel, into Arab populations in Israel and Jewish populations in Israel. There's lynchings on the street, there's people burning stuff, there's rioting, and that is the most dangerous part, because it could really cause, unless we're already in a civil war, it could cause a civil war with many people dead on both sides. And I've heard stories of people like seeing their neighbors burning their cars. And now, can you imagine how can you go back afterwards and live peacefully next to the same neighbor torched your car or did something? It's scarce for
we had the same question, when we had the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina with Serbia, Croatia, etc. How could they ever live together? And yeah. And this is why I chose those photos. We missed the one before. This shows, please do the one before.
Oh yeah.
This shows an Israeli woman, her apartment was hit by a rocket, as it seems, well, she's one of the losers. In the next photo, we see a Palestinian woman who had lost uh, a child or a husband in one of the missile attacks. There's also suffering. You know, another woman is sitting on the stairs, you know, and with a little kid in her arms. Yeah, you know, others are trying to shelter themselves in the streets, and you see everything. Just look at the faces, you know, and from a human and logic point of view, this all shouldn't be necessary, you know, and it is we are a crazy species as humans, because that we allow that we do this to each other, and
Yeah, it's insane.
not finding a way, you know, to get along together, you know, and
It is insane, particularly when they've established scientifically a few years ago that genetically the mainly Palestinians are descendants of Jews that were forcefully converted to Islam somewhere along the way. So we're even the same people. And that's
that's the thing.
It's
through the history, you know, force determined what religion you were and where you lived. Not genetics.
Yeah.
But it's literally a civilian, a brother versus brother war, and that just highlights how ridiculous and absurd this whole thing is.
Yeah.
And Oz, I do have to say, Oz,
justice, peace.
What did you say, Amos?
Peace and justice. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
It is so easy, you know. I'm not very religious, to be honest, you know. But if you look at what Jesus said at the I don't know what the mountain was, you know, where he gave his big speech, you know. He said, you know, don't do to another guy. Yes, the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, don't do to anyone else what you don't want to be done to you, you know, and the other way around, you know, care for the next, and so on, you know.
Golden rule.
It's the golden rule, but and you don't need any other rules in the end if you follow this rule, right?
Yep.
Right.
You don't need any other rules. But we are so stupid. We are doing everything opposite.
And thinking about how our own survival in general globally is being threatened, and we might not even survive this global climate change and the extinction, and we're fighting this stupid wars where there's really no, I mean, there's no reason. It's just insane. I hope
if we keep cultivating inequity as we have been, the future is going to be very bleak.
Yeah.
You know, we need to cultivate equity. We're all in this together, and without cooperation, problems can't get solved.
Yeah,
I have to address
the progressive point of view.
I have to address though Oz and Melissa's points there. I you know, it's not like one side did all the aggression and the injustice. The settlement of Jews in Israel before the state of Israel was marked by pogroms perpetrated by the local Arab population. So let's not start the blame game, because you could always like Trevor said, you could always show horrific acts on the other side. There's been terrorists that killed children.
Yes.
There's been a lot of bad history. We have to unlock ourselves from that. And I would challenge whoever is propagating those things. I feel sometimes that they're more motivated by hatred of one side than by love of the other. And I think if you love your side, you're able to and ready and want to criticize them where it belongs, and you know, I think that's you're doing a favor to your own side by criticizing, by seeing blame also on their end, and I challenge you to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, and Melissa H, I hear you. You know, religion following their own rules. Don't be silly, Marcus. Yeah, I know. You know, it was just it was just a stupid, very theoretical thought I had. Sorry.
There are a couple of they're not funny, but
No.
we include
No.
some cartoons because that's what we do on the show. Here's
Yeah.
both sides sending rockets at each other, and it says, because all we want is peace. And here the little kid says, but if you shoot at Israel from our home, won't they target this location? And he says, we're counting on it. Sadly, that's a reality of this as well. It's a little game called hide and
The rocket, yeah.
rocket and
The last missile hit a hospital. Is that what they meant by surgical strikes? Yeah. Yeah.
And that is my criticism of Israel, and that is that they have not yet. It's on them to learn how to respond with different results. If you keep doing the same thing and get the same bad results, it's called insanity. We all know that, and they've done that. If they were a company, if the government of Israel were a company and were subject to their board of members, they would have been replaced long ago. They have not yet figured out how to how to attack the. I mean, it's challenging. I'll give you that. It's not a simple thing because of all the obstacles that I mentioned. But nevertheless, you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
But didn't you just give yourself a kind of answer?
Being criticized.
I'm sorry.
If they're not being criticized, there's no incentive for them to do anything else but what they've been doing. You know, Netanyahu, his shareholders are very pleased with him. I'm not one of his shareholders, but his actual supporters, he's doing great. You know, so
you both.
He's
you're both.
He's riding the fear train, just as like anybody on any side. It's like once there is widespread hostilities. What I'm saying is that they're basically, once you're in that cycle, it's really impossible to unlatch. It's just impossible to unlatch. That's why it has to reach the bottom before it.
You both gave good arguments for BDS, guys. Do you know this? You know, Keith was talking about the shareholders, if you want so, you know, and you know, if you hit the economy in a capitalistic system, maybe it works, you know. But the problem I see is it would easily connect it, you know, with anti-Semitic feelings and narrative. You know, this is what I fear. You know.
Well, my issue with it is more that it's denying Palestinians good income jobs, because there's not a lot of industry in the West Bank, and so that is. What's that?
Of course not. Where should it come from?
Right. So it's you know, you're hurting people who are
in the West Bank and giving them any opportunities.
Yeah, but but there is not a path to this inside, you know, and maybe economic pressure, you know, the economic pressure which would be put on Israeli businesses, you know, and this pressure would be given also to the government, you know, if you want to follow this procedure.
Right. Yeah. Perhaps, I don't know. I think it also hurts. It also hurts some of the people you're trying to protect, but I don't know. Perhaps there are better, more surgical ways to approach it. But, here's another cartoon. Which is worse, using human shields or hitting them? There's right poking fun
Yeah.
at Talib.
But I don't take them for serious anymore. You know, all they can do is talking and tweeting, and it is easy, you know, to do this. All right. Yeah. Are some human
Right.
rights more equal than others? Yeah.
Again, like when you're talking about apartheid, we're talking about like population in the occupied territory. That's
Yeah.
resolved.
And I don't know, this cartoon reminds me of a saying in the Arab region. You know, there is a story or an anecdote about a frog. No, about a scorpion who wants to cross a river, you know, and he sees a frog at the bank of the river, and he's asking the frog, "Hey, come on, I won't sting you to death if you transport me on your back, you know, over the river to the other side," you know. And when they were in the middle of the river, you know, the scorpion stung the frog, you know, and while he was dying, the frog was asking, "Why did you do this? You know, it makes no sense." He said, "Because we are in Arabia."
Nature.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, anyway.
Last one. Here's
And this is exactly what we're talking about, you know. The more we hit, the more they sting. The more they sting, the more we hit. The endless circle. And
And who benefits?
yeah, cui bono. Yeah.
I would say nobody benefits, but
So on a political level,
I'm not
you
even
know,
sure that on a
Netanyahu's
political level.
benefiting.
if it brings Netanyahu another term, you know, because he is posing as the strong guy right now.
He's not. It's
then he
like I said.
then he would.
Like I said, there is like a consensus on across the Israeli political spectrum now that they have to respond. So it's not like him gaining anything necessarily in this situation, but you know, he's definitely causing a distraction.
All right. Wow, guys, this was a very, very long discussion, and it was very interesting. You know, of course, it was unsatisfying. You know, if you expected any solutions, we cannot deliver this. Otherwise, we would be the guys for the next Nobel Prize.
One more thing, Markus, if I may,
yes,
end on a positive note. I think my view on it is basically that everything has to start with respect, and that is the key element there. Like, start with respect. It's a simple thing, a mutual respect, and then the other thing is that we have to build a core of conscientious violence objectors on both sides, where this is violence is just rejected as a means to solve the issue, and start from there. And I think there is light if we take those approaches, but it's going to be tough. I think in the long run, my favorite approach is not a two-state solution. It's a federation of Israel and Palestine, which would tie the when you think about it, it will tie the benefits of both nations together. If one goes up, the other goes up. If one goes down, the other goes down, and that is the only way to guarantee that let
me answer as a cynic. You know, we don't have time to wait another 2,600 years, Amos.
I don't think it's a political
no,
solution.
We don't. We've had enough.
It's a political solution. I don't think it has to take 2,000 years.
We will see. We will see. All right. Well, it was a long discussion, and as I said, I liked it. You know, I hope that we covered lots of thoughts we had in our mind regarding all this, and well, you know, we could not deliver any straight answers for solutions, but I hope you liked it. We're coming now to the lethal black fungus. What is going on there?
Yikes.
Oh yes, I found that. Uh, just India was in the news, and where are we? I was looking for the slide here.
All right, take your time.
33.
We got, oh, update on Biden plan.
Number 33.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just tell you what I learned about this. There's a fungus in the soil. It's all over the world. It is a small number of people get it, catch it every year, like two or three, 5 or 10 people in a million in the Western countries. In India, it was only like 17 people uh, got it in a typical year. So it was about twice the incidence in India, but still a rare, kind of unknown but horrible disease to get. It goes for your brain if it gets in you. And there's a 50% mortality rate. So something is happening. There's some kind of synergy with the AIDS, excuse me, COVID treatments where it affects the immune system. And so this fungus suddenly becomes much more able to infect a person. So they're like right now in one state in India, they have as many cases currently as they have during a typical year. So, um, so it's just another complication to emphasize that, being responsible and doing what we can to bring the pandemic to an end is really a good idea, which is my point of bringing it here. And what else do we have to say about that? Oh yeah, and I did. I think I pretty much covered it. The last, I do have a humorous slide at the end. Imagine a virus so deadly that it doesn't affect those who don't give a shit, and how true that is.
Want to
So
address
this
this?
segment's very short. When I found it, I thought it would be a great thing to like lead into anything else we had to say about COVID. If we had any other segments, we could like lead into that from it.
Want to
So
address this slide?
yeah, well, this is the one that's saying that they have basically in this one state they have 2,000 cases currently, and in a given year the entire country would have maybe 2,000. And so what does that mean? I don't know, because unless you know how long it lasts and how long it takes to kill you, they're just numbers. But obviously, there's an increase in this thing, and it's an interesting thing that it did not happen the first wave. Last year, this was not seen, and that suddenly this came about. So maybe the fungus is mutated. That again, that's the point. When you have this stuff out there and you're letting it infect people, every person's a petri dish, and you're going to breed worse bugs. And this is just another complication to the story of what's going on in the global south regarding COVID.
All right. Doesn't sound very, very good, and I can guarantee as long as the industrial countries are not infected by this, nobody would really care, right?
Right. Oh, one thing I do recall, it costs about $50 a day to treat a person with this disease, which in India makes it basically unaffordable for most people. And it'd be really nice if the other countries in the world would kind of chip in and help out and kind of pay the bill of those who need treatment. I'd be all for that.
Yeah.
So just an idea.
Yeah. All right. Interesting and worrying also. We have an update on the electrification plans of Joe Biden, right?
Yes, we do. I looked into it more, continuing from last week, just overall looking at Biden's plan. And And yeah, starting with the transportation, you know, I recalculated I did a better calculation. Actually, uh, the insurance agencies know how far people drive in a year. So I was able to take that data and combine it and redo a calculation so that I found out we only need about 28% additional generating capacity if we have electric cars, provided we only drive Nissan Leafs, which are tiny. And if you have delivery vans and so on, you're going to need, you know, if you're delivering packages, you're going to need bigger batteries, bigger vehicles, and you're not going to be able to get by on 200 watt hours a kilometer or mile, or yeah, 200 watt hours a mile. You're going to need like more like 600 or 700 or 800 if you're a truck. So what this means is that Biden's plan would, you know, anybody looking at a green revolution is looking at a huge increase in the generating capacity. And where is that going to come from? You know, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Biden has three pillars in this plan he put out. One's having to do with the COVID crisis, getting America back to work. One's having to do with families, and the other one's having to do with infrastructure and jobs. So the electric vehicle portion, which is the only thing I've been concentrating on, is part of the infrastructure, and it's 28% of that portion. It's not a small number. It's basically Biden's plan would fund the entire state of Alabama, which is why I have that strange little symbol there. That's the Alabama state flag to remind me that Biden's plan would basically put everybody in Alabama in a Nissan Leaf. And yeah, and so like transit vehicles, you know, we don't have any, you know, right? We have, I think Elon Musk showed some kind of ridiculous box a year or so ago, you know, on some dog and pony show. And we all know what a Tesla looks like, you know. Some of us would even like to have one, you know, kind of cool. But the thing is, those are just sports cars, or, you know, they're not really, you know, Biden's plan infrastructure. Well, we're going to have electric transit vehicles. Really? Oh, I've never seen one. Has anybody, you know, I've seen something that can deliver like things on golf carts, you know, golf courses, you know, for the gardeners and stuff. But I haven't seen any serious electric vehicle for delivery in my life. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like. We actually did used to have some, though, if we go back in time. And we, you know, at one time I was interested in doing this myself, get an old pickup truck and convert it to electric. And I even knew where I was going to get all the components and stuff. But, you know, it kind of cost money. So it kind of never happened, and a lot of time too. But so the S10 was actually one that I was interested in converting, and actually GM made some that were electric right out of the you know, right off the production line, and Ford made some too. You know, they made one called the Electric Ranger. Now, most of these were made for fleet use, and you know, this was at the time when car companies didn't want electric cars on the road. So as soon as they could, they snatched up the fleets and shredded the cars. You know, there were a few that were sold to the government that, because that the only way you could get these originally if you leased them. So they were able to be taken away from people. But there were some sold to the government that came out at auction. So there are a few lucky people that have an electric transit vehicle pickup truck. But you know, that's the only thing we got. So how things are, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this progresses.
It's more common in
yeah, and then, you know, yeah, go ahead, Amos.
yeah, it's more common in Europe. You
Oh yeah,
have
there we go. Yeah.
But I gotta
Okay,
say,
so a Ford EV, a pickup truck, that
got-
one's 500 watt hours a mile. And that, so if we drove those, then we would need about 50% increase in the whole grid capacity of the United States just to fund the additional vehicles. Yeah. Okay, what's next here? Let's move on. Okay. Yeah. So, like I say, 3 pillars. Okay. I looked into, so I looked into the electric cars. Then, I'm looking into the other plans. I really haven't got to the rescue plan at all yet, but I was looking at the American Families Plan, and yeah, Biden's going to pay for, childcare, and yeah, the Velociraptor, has a good observation there that good parents will be nice and fat and tasty because they'll have jobs because all their kids will be in school. So obviously, if Biden's going to put the kids pay for the child care, then all the parents will have jobs, and that's good to know. That's good to know. One thing about the entire plan again is everything's corporate based. So there's a large pre-kindergarten daycare industry being formed in America right now. As I can drive around Seattle, I can see new construction projects where they're building daycare centers and stuff. So again, money's getting its way, and those who have it are going to get more, and society is being shaped to give those who have more as usual.
Yes.
So yeah, and going on to the next slide, that's my point here is again that the caregiving center. Oh, I read a very interesting article to make the slide, and what it was about, was the caregiving sector is not an appropriate thing for capitalism. It was, an anti-capitalist argument, but it had a very good point in that, when you think about like bookstores and, well, forget about Amazon coming down like an aliens invader and taking over, but, mom and pop, hey, they compete, they work harder, they make more money, it's all fair and everything. Well, this article gave a good point of view to, when you get sick, you don't really have a choice to go to the hospital. You can't shop around. It's a captive market, and having profit make the decisions in the caregiving sector is really not a good idea. And the article made the point that Europe has many countries in Europe, Germany would be one of them, that they're very good at putting a fence around the private sector when it comes to healthcare. But in America, you've got healthcare that's profit driven. So hospitals are in the business of making money. And yeah, and it's really not it's the wrong way to do it. So yes, and at the bottom of this I have, what's wrong with that? Doesn't the profit motive optimize efficiencies? In terms of taking money and putting it in the pockets of a few people, it certainly does. Can't deny that. Yeah. And going on the next slide, I mentioned already that labor movements, in other countries, put a fence around healthcare and keep it, and they have a better system. And Biden's plan, whatever you're doing, corporate welfare, people are going to be learning how to game this. And that's one thing that really, I've kind of noticed in my life is that you got to be really careful about setting up programs and so on, because there's these opportunists that will come in and start building daycare centers all over the place. Because isn't that a wonderful thing? Might be, I don't know. I'm just saying. Yeah. So my conclusion as a radical, leftist here, and so therefore you can ignore everything I'm going to say, is that the entire caregiving sector needs to be separated from the commercial economy. Otherwise, we pay exorbitant costs for inadequate services and abuse workers and patients alike. And actually, I just quoted somebody, the author of the article, and
Kuttner.
that's real good. So that's what that's my feeling about Biden's plan for the people. You know, he's got the infrastructure plan. He's got a plan for our families, and it's all corporate welfare. It's all to benefit whoever the Democratic donors are investing their money in it right now. And that's a horrible, jaded point of view, but I'll stand by it for now. So now I can move on, and okay, yes. So now we're getting into Honduras. I only have a few slides here. Uh, getting, I wanted to find out more about the immigration issues, and and I think what triggered that was reading some stuff about Kamala Harris being put in charge of the project, and what an unfair job to be given. Maybe she can do a good job with it. Maybe she deserves it. I don't know, but you know, what a mess. Uh, so why are all these people from Honduras coming to America, or why do they want to? Well, one thing I can say, the knee-jerk reaction for me, since I'm into climate, and say, "Oh, it's global warming, it's climate change, the world's changing." Well, that is part of it, but that's not all of it. Um, it turns out that Honduras is a very lawless place to live. Okay, if you're in Honduras, and like say you're a taxi driver, you have to pay, some protection fees to the gangs, and if you don't, you die. They kill you. And so basically, Hondurans, the government is not doing anything for the people. They're allowing rampant lawlessness to gangs to run the place, and this is all fine with America apparently, because 10 years ago we funded a coup. We removed, we helped to remove the existing president, who happened to be socialist. So can you imagine why the United States would want him out? Gee. So yeah, so you've got a corrupt government. Oh, the president of Honduras, by the way, has a brother who's doing life in prison for drug smuggling. He was sentenced about a month and a half ago. So the brother of the president that we put in power 10 years ago to get rid of the socialist guy, is doing life in prison because he's like 20,000 kilos of cocaine. It's an enormous amount. And he had been in Congress, and he had been, using government resources to facilitate the drug smuggling, all that good stuff. So, yeah, so, John Orlando Hernandez, does what he's told. He's the Americans, he's our guy down there. And currently, because there's been such an increase in people wanting to come up from Honduras, because it's basically nowhere you want to be, you know, Kamala Harris is looking into things, and oh, I forgot my point there. Anyway, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find out what was behind all this Honduran stuff, and why they were the number one. They were the leading number of immigrants right now. I did remember. Yes.
Oh.
What's that, Amos?
No, Keith, and I just
wanted. Okay. The last thing is.
Go ahead.
Now we interrupt each other twice.
So
I'll just keep saying that my last point is that Kamala Harris is a lot of pressure is being put on the South American, Central American governments, Mexico, all of them, to tighten their borders so that we don't have to do it. So Honduras is promising to keep their people in to the best of their ability and not let them get into Mexico and go north. So go ahead, Amos. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say it wouldn't be as egregious if it wasn't a pattern with the U.S. where they've done that with nearly all of the South American, Central American governments they've been supporting. And during Trump, this tactic fell apart in Venezuela, as we could see, where the emperor was not wearing any clothes. But
Nicaragua as well.
Nicaragua and yeah, I mean even Mexico, they've supported this corrupt Labrador
Chile.
guy. Yeah.
Yes, whoever supports capitalism, we don't care what else they support, as long as they're make a good environment for American business. They can murder it. It seems to, and it doesn't make our news. One thing, Honduras is like the leading place where you do not want to be an environmentalist in Honduras. They will kill you. People die there, and the reason is the place is tropical, so there's all kinds of biodiversity that needs to be protected, and there's but that's also resources. So you've got it's a boiling pot of conflicting interests, and but a lot of people who advocate for environmental or community type you know concerns, they wind up dead. So it's really disappointing to be in a country that supports such egregious, horrible atrocity. What else can I say? It's
So you wouldn't feel also well in Germany as a German also, if for example, that we are delivering weapons to both Congos who are at war now also for decades and stuff, and yes, everywhere, every country who produces weapons, has his dead bodies in the basement.
Objectivity.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be part of any company that was making that stuff if I could avoid it.
Yeah. All right. It's a long show already. I want to make it short because we have a very, very long outro song for you guys this time. Let us have a close look and a short look what happened with the GOP, the Grand Orange Party this week. And indeed, it got more orange than it was before since Trump left office. Elizabeth Cheney, the daughter of her father, she is out now. She is not conservative enough anymore, or right wing.
No, not
extreme enough.
conservative. She's not Trump supporting enough. She's not a psychopath.
Yes, this is what I meant. She is not conservative enough anymore because this changed into right wingers Trumpism, if you want so, right? And Trump advocated to bring Elise Stefanik in it instead, a woman who so far only got attention by cutting other people's words and being a pain in the ass mostly, and she went on Twitter, and she said bullshit like she's truly honored, and she is not saying that she is standing against the radical socialist Democrat agenda of Biden and Nancy Pelosi, which is satire in itself. This is why I put it on, and yeah, she is
she's the real
loose
thing.
cannon. She's a loose cannon, and I think we can expect a lot more from her. I think it should be in the level of an MTG, well, it is nothing you really would like to be represented, I guess. But well, the GOP thinks it's okay.
And she's not necessarily, that's why I jumped in, she's less conservative on positions than Liz Cheney. But she's very loyal to Trump. And
go on.
No, and so is McCarthy and all these people. They're sycophants, and this is why it's so alarming, because the Republican Party has really become this authoritarian stamp for like discarding truth, discarding fact, and just going for like a strong leader that That's the true scary part of all.
Yeah. And if you look a little bit at her history, it seems that she is a clear opportunist, because in earlier years she had a different approach to politics, and you would think she would be more a Democrat-oriented person, But when she found out that the constitutions in her hometown were mostly pro-Trump, she decided it is good, to change the flag, and put it back into the wind. Yeah, what she did.
Yes, that's disappointing. Some people do that. They figure out which sides
Yeah,
they're going to benefit them, and they just follow that side.
yeah, exactly. Right, we're at the cartoon section already.
For the cartoon section, these are just the cartoons relating to Liz
You put
Cheney.
this first, okay.
There's our beloved elephant kicking her out for saying the emperor has no nose.
Yeah.
There's Trump saying about the GOP on the wall. Oh, that one, I didn't even have to kill it. It just walked in and handed its head on a platter.
Yeah.
That's true. Here's the elephant saying to Lincoln, we're removing you from your leadership position.
Yeah. I don't know, it just keeps growing. The big lie.
It should be all knows by now.
Yeah. An ugly monster threatens to consume our nation. Not you, gorgeous. Yeah.
One more short before we go to the rest of the cartoons, and that's the CDC decision to allow people who are fully vaccinated to not wear masks in public, even in close places. Personally, I think it's a mistake. I understand the logic of it, and that is that they say if you're fully vaccinated, you're fully protected, so you don't have to worry about it. The only people who have to worry about it are the people who don't have vaccines, so that's on them. But that being said,
setting a good example for others means nothing.
Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing here.
Right, but beyond that, I mean, there's two problems with that. Number one is that you have people who are can't wear masks, can't get vaccines because they have medical issues, and they're now at the mercy of those anti-vaxxers who are going to be walking around without masks and not be vaccinated. So they're really on a losing end. And then you have the people who are you have the issue that it's going to continue. You're basically making sure that it's going to continue to smolder. This epidemic is continue to smolder on a small fire, on and on, because people who are not vaccinated are going to keep infecting each other. We're far from herd immunity. We're something around 50% in this country, which means that we're giving the virus an opportunity to develop new strains that will be vaccination prone. So, I mean, the opposite, vaccination resistant.
Or another black fungus.
Yeah, or that.
Yep.
But it's not. I think it's a big mistake. We'll see where it goes, whether I'm right or the CDC. But
yeah.
Oh, here's another one. Is Liz? I missed that one.
Yep. If you strike me down now, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I'm not sure we made the right choice. Really?
Yeah, I don't think.
Really? Is he serious about it? Liz Cheney is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elephant.
Yeah.
Is on the soles of her shoe. Awa.
Yeah. Yeah. The pipeline hacking, right? I read an interesting
the pipeline hack.
I read an interesting article on this, and in this article it says the gas station owners, are asking their customers not to buy the gas in plastic bags. It would be too dangerous.
Yeah. I have a question for Amos about the pipeline. I
Yes.
want his point of view on something.
Yeah.
And okay, my point of view is I find this whole pipeline a bit ridiculous because I got this thing here, right here. This it's called a Raspberry Pi, and if this thing got hacked, I could unhack it in about 10 seconds. I could plug it in, load a new flash into the memory. Whatever was there would be gone and would be back the way it's supposed to be. So I'm wondering why it is that you've got a complex system critical pipeline control system and you don't have a way to reboot the thing to make it all come back like it was when you bought it from the factory. That's my point of view, is that something is very suspicious in this whole story.
I don't know if that's suspicious.
I know, Amos, you've got some background that might let you give an opinion here.
Yeah, I'm an ex-IT
I mean, an educated opinion.
I'm an ex-IT person, but not necessarily not in security. But yeah, you could. I mean, the problem is that these systems are very complex systems. There's systems that are sometimes hacked together from various things that feed into each other. It's not as easy to just swipe a server or something because something may get re-replicated from another place and it's hard to know. So you have to access a lot of caution. Plus, you don't know whether you patched the hole or not. If whoever has access to a part of the system that you're not aware of being used as a backdoor, they can still come back and create even more havoc once you've rebooted it. So yeah, it's not necessarily suspicious.
This raises a question for me. I know that some of your nukes are still running on floppy disks. Did you resolve this problem meanwhile?
Yep.
Oh, I actually know something about that.
Oh God.
Yes. Yeah. I was working at a museum until the pandemic hit, and we had a very old computer that was a control data computer, 6500 wave mainframe, and the Air Force actually contacted us to see if we could.
Amos, now he's telling us he got the codes.
They were having trouble because they have to maintain all this old stuff and finding equipment and spare parts for it all is very difficult. And they were interested in knowing what we could do about reading some of the old discs and getting the data off them. So,
all right,
an irrelevant piece of trivia, but yes, the fact is that there are some really old systems that are being used. But then if they're that old, and if we go along the complexity argument that Amos was giving, then they should actually be pretty safe from being hacked because they'd be more like this, and then you could just plug in a cable and press a button and it'd be fixed.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm riding with Biden, right?
Yep.
And the lobotomy scar. Yeah. Who could that be?
Right. There raise taxes for infrastructure. My infrastructure is doing just fine, thank you.
Yeah. And I like the next one, because I read an article in the German media, and a couple of weeks ago, and the article came to the conclusion, oh my God, we can never come back on our foot again economically. If you look how far America is already, how they are coming out of the pandemic, and they are so far ahead of us, and it's quite interesting to see that this guy had a different impression on what's going on.
You can hear Biden's voice. Oh, come on, man. Move along.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Yeah, the average Joe. Yeah.
The way it is. Taxes have never been lower for the rich, and they want to keep them that way.
Yeah. And there are the Democrats who are trying to get the green big balloon inside the slim majority. We'll see.
There's a truth to that. We'll try.
Yeah. All right. Nearly 2 hours, guys. Damn. One of our longest shows. And it's not ended, We
long today.
Yeah, because we got something very special for you guys. This are the Viagra Boys, and it's a band I really, really like. Meanwhile, they brought out their first album in 2019, 2 years ago. It is Street Worms. This is what I got here. Hope you can see it. Fantastic album. It gave rock music a fresh air, in my opinion. It's a very
I checked them out.
You did.
We were going to do this last week, so I checked them out. Yeah.
All right. Absolutely fantastic, very charismatic, and very inked a singer. Sebastian Murphy. Who the band is coming from Sweden, from Stockholm. Sebastian Murphy, the singer, grew up in California and later got back to Sweden. And there he found the band, or they found him. He was doing a karaoke, and they said, "No, we want this guy. We want him to be our singer." And he is also doing the lyrics, and this combo is also very remarkable because 2 of them are coming from jazz. It's the drummer and the sax player, and you will hear this in a moment. And the other guys, the bass and the guitar, are coming from punk, and it has very, very much influences. They are taking it from 70s. A little bit electro is in it, as you can see. A saxophone, jazz. Their latest album, which just came out a couple of months ago, is Welfare Jazz, and it's a very, very great album as well. If you can watch it, listen to it here on YouTube. Fantastic band, and I hope you will like them. And saying this, for me, the show is over for today. Do you have any last words, Keith?
Play it.
Amos?
I'm feeling sick as a dog. I had my second shot yesterday, and I'm ready to collapse. I managed to survive the show, which is great. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that.
Okay, so take a rest after this, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you will enjoy the weekend. Have a great week, and hope to see you next week on Saturday.
Great conversation, guys. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. The Viagra Boys, girls and boys.
About freestyle.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, we're all clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marcus, you're still muted.
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a tough
Damn.
show to
Well,
get through.
show.
Yeah, yeah. But I think we did it good, right?
Hope so.
Yeah, that's what the chat was saying.
Even
But what do we
Oz,
know?
who was very critical, was satisfied in the end.
Well, that's the idea.
Well, Oz, I'm sure, wanted us more anti-Palestinian, for sure.
Anti-Israeli.
No, anti-Israel.
Oz gets very passionate.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Yep. So see you next week. Have a great.
You will be with us, Keith,
Okay.
right?
I will have a green screen.
Great.
All right, man. See you next week, man.
It will be delivered Monday.
Good.
It's on the way.
Practice
right.
with the practice before with the lighting, because you have to get the lighting right.
Yeah, the lighting was better.
Oh, I
today.
will. Yes.
Much better. Yeah.
And basically, don't use the green screen option in Zoom, because we're gonna just make you transparent for us through our interface through OBS.
Yeah, yeah. Just put the green screen behind you, and the rest.
Oh, I
will
know.
do.
Yeah. Just let you handle it.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a great week. See you next week.
Okay. Next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you both. I love being with you. So
We are
both
glad
have a
that
good week.
you're with us, man. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.